Here's one way that motivation theory can make both your courses and content better. There are a lot of motivation theories out there, and they aren't all created equal, but you can learn something important about how to engage with your audience from every credible theory. Today, we're zooming in on the theory of interest. In other words, how does your interest in something improve your motivation to engage in that thing? And how do you capture someone's interest in the first place? We'll focus on two types of interest and the way they influence motivation. Situational interest, which is short-term interest that's triggered by something, and personal interest, which is long-term interest in something that's sustained over time. Now, the obvious goal is for your courses and content to facilitate personal or long-term interest. But before you can do that, you have to capture someone's attention. In other words, you want to trigger situational interest. So how do you do that? It's actually pretty simple. To trigger situational interest, you want to do something that's novel, incongruous, or surprising. A simpler way to say this is that if you want to capture a few minutes of someone's attention, you need to do something that they don't expect. If you can subvert their expectations, you'll buy a few minutes of their attention. And all the most successful creators know this. They use it every day. Just look at these thumbnails from top-tier YouTube creators. Most of these thumbnails are just trying to trigger your curiosity by showing or saying something unexpected. And this tactic is even more successful if you can create a curiosity gap. Just look at the title on this recent episode of Diary of a CEO. The skill that makes you impossible to manipulate. Do you feel the tug of curiosity? Does your brain instantly say, what skill? That's why this tactic works so well. Let's look at another example. This is a recent video from Dr. Boz. Notice that she's not just using a title that creates a curiosity gap. Her image also surprises you. When's the last time you saw someone take a bite out of a stick of butter? Assuming that you don't have a toddler, I'm willing to say that it's probably been a while. Mr. Beast is another obvious example of using these techniques to trigger situational interest. And he often does this in a sensationalist or outlandish way. I don't even have to pick a specific video. I could randomly shuffle through the videos on his channel, and any given thumbnail would be doing exactly what we just described. But why does this work? Why are we so captivated by outlandish, shocking, and sometimes ridiculous claims? One explanation is that one of your brain's most important jobs is to save mental resources for things that need your explicit attention. In other words, when you think you know what to expect, your brain goes on autopilot and you give that thing less of your attention. But when something unexpected comes along, it sharpens your focus because you have to actively process that new thing and decide how to respond to it. Here's a simple example. Imagine you've been attending the same class all semester. Every class, the teacher does the same 3 things. They start with a quiz, lecture for 30 minutes on the reading, and spend the last 10 minutes on a Q&A. After a while, your brain starts to disengage because it can accurately predict everything that's going to happen. But what happens to your attention when you show up to that same class and that teacher breaks the pattern by doing something unexpected? Even something small can have a big impact, like having the whole class get up and take a walk outside. And you might have already guessed this, but situational interest can have varying levels of quality. For example, if this teacher decided to come to class one day in a rubber duck suit, that would certainly trigger your interest, just maybe not in the right way. Instead of focusing on the lecture, you might spend all your mental resources trying to understand why the teacher would do such a ridiculous thing. In fact, you might be so distracted by this that you miss almost everything the teacher is saying. In other words, not all attention is good attention, especially when it comes to teaching and learning. Your YouTube feed is a masterclass on how to do this well, because this is the exact mechanism that makes thumbnails, titles, and hooks work. But I hope you're starting to see that this can be applied to a lot more than just the first 2 sentences of your content. It can also make your courses more engaging and interesting. An easy way to do this in your courses is to start a module out by having your audience do something. Most online courses are built for passive consumption. Your audience's brain is expecting that and has already tuned out. So in most cases, asking them to do something will instantly subvert their expectations. And doing something will usually require their explicit attention. You can also do some of the sensationalist things we talked about to shock your audience and create a curiosity gap. One obvious risk of doing this too often is that your audience's brain will start to expect the unexpected. This is something you may have noticed yourself while scrolling on social media. After a while, even the most shocking things don't capture your attention, which is one reason why you can't rely solely on this strategy to build and maintain an audience. So now you have someone's attention, and you want to turn that attention into a subscriber that keeps coming back to your content. So how do you turn that situational interest into personal or long-term interest? And how do you use these same techniques to build courses that keep people coming back for more without annoying them with flashy techniques that get old fast? You could try to do it all yourself, or you could work with me and my team. Building a great course that your audience will love requires a lot. It's everything that we've been talking about in this video and a whole lot more. I help six-figure coaches and creators free up time and break through their revenue ceiling by building premium courses that make them money while they sleep. A lot of successful coaches and creators have the same problem. They've built something great, but their revenue is tied to their time. If they're not working, they're not earning. On top of that, every hour you spend trying to build a course is an hour you're not serving your clients or growing your business. That's real money walking out the door. Me and my team bring everything you need to build a premium course. We have expertise in instructional design, graphic design, learning theory, video production, creative writing, and educational technology. You don't have time to master all of that, and you shouldn't have to. If you work with me, I'll do the heavy lifting. I'll help you launch a premium course without pulling your focus away from what's already working. You focus on your business and selling the course. I'll build you something worth selling. And if you want to learn more, go to overtime.courses/coaches. All right, back to the video. After you trigger someone's situational interest, you want to help them develop personal interest and sustain that interest over time. And that's not an easy thing to do. And to be honest, interest theories on motivation, at least the ones that I've read, don't provide a lot of practical ways to get people there. But I do think that other motivation theories, and even some other learning theories, can give us some practical ways to bridge that gap. And I would argue that you have a 0% chance to create sustained interest if you don't capture their attention in the first place, which is one reason why the idea of the hook or subverting expectations is so widely used. For the purposes of this video, let me give you 3 tactics that will give you a better chance of success. These are not comprehensive, they're just a couple of quick tips. I'll go into more depth on each of them in future videos. After you capture someone's attention, deliver on the promise that triggered their attention in the first place. In other words, if you created a curiosity gap, close that gap by providing real answers. Don't make promises you can't keep. That's a quick way to damage trust. If people don't think they can trust you, they will keep scrolling no matter how sensational your title is. Second, increase their self-efficacy or their belief that they can do something. You can increase someone's interest by giving them experiences of success. Your belief in your ability to do something successfully, especially something that's relevant to you, is directly tied to your interest in doing that thing again. On the flip side, you rapidly lose interest in things that you don't think you can be successful in. Third, make the content relevant. No amount of novel, surprising, or incongruous content will capture someone's attention if they don't care about the topic, which means you need to know the type of person you're making content for before you start. You'll also find that things that are relevant will still capture your audience's attention, even if you're not using the sensationalist tactics we talked about earlier. Take another look at your YouTube feed. If you go there right now and start scrolling, you'll quickly notice that while there is a fair amount of attention-grabbing titles, most of the content is directly tied to something the algorithm thinks you care about. And if your feed is like mine, a lot of that relevant content doesn't use jaw-dropping titles and thumbnails. Let's recap what we've talked about. If you want to capture someone's attention, at least in the short term, ask yourself 2 questions. What does my audience expect, and how can I subvert their expectation in a relevant way? Bonus points if you can create a curiosity gap that makes them crave an answer. If you can combine some of the things we talked about here to capture someone's attention and provide content that is relevant and meaningful, I don't think you'll have any problem selling your course. If you like videos like this and want more practical tips from motivation theory and psychology, let me know by subscribing, commenting, or sharing the video. It really does make a difference for me. I'll catch you next time.